Okay, we're continuing with the top 50 health books of all time, and we're on number 11 through 15. We're going to start out with Multiple Sclerosis book by Roy Swank. So Roy Swank was a neurologist originally from Canada. He's friends with Dr. McDougall. He has the best results of any doctor in the world by far for treatment of multiple sclerosis. This was his book, the Multiple Sclerosis Diet Book. And also, I'm not recommending you buy this book, but what I'm doing here is just showing you where the information is. You can get everything you need to know about Dr. Swank from watching the videos at Dr. McDougall's channel. I'd recommend you do this. I bought the book and I read the book cover to cover. There's not that much information in the book that's not available from his videos. Dr. Swank's lectures himself are available at Dr. McDougall's channel, as well as Dr. McDougall's lectures about Swank. And then you got the references to his papers. And the gist of it is when you eat a high-fat meal, especially saturated fat, you get rouleau formation, you get blood sludge, and then you get the subsequent complications of that, and it's associated with leaky gut and with leaky blood-brain barrier and with subsequent multiple sclerosis. That's the big thing to know. So you tell the patient, don't eat any saturated fat, as little as possible. So here's one of Dr. Swank's papers. He had 34-year follow-up on 150 patients with multiple sclerosis, and the ones that were diagnosed early and then followed the the recommendations of a low-fat diet, especially low-sat fat, 95% of them at 34-year follow-up were still intact for their ADLs, activities of daily living, which is incredible because usually MS patients don't do very well. They're usually debilitated and die early. So here's the chylomicrons. After a high-fat meal, they come up pretty quick. They're markedly elevated, from about 3 to 8 hours, and those cause the blood sludge. And he felt that that was causing injury and hypoxia of the blood-brain barrier as well, leading to leaky blood-brain barrier. Okay, here is from a Dr. Swank paper. You can see after eating a high-fat meal, the red blood cells are sticking together like a stack of coins. That's called rouleau formation. It's a French word for stack of coins. And this leads to less oxygen being delivered to the tissues. He had measured a 35% drop in the oxygen delivery to the brain cells of a hamster. Okay, and he'd done these in other locations in the body. This is a movie you can watch at Dr. McDougall's YouTube channel. It's about 50 seconds long. They show the red blood cells flowing independently of each other before the high-fat meal. After the high-fat meal, the red blood cells are sticking together, clumping together. And this type of experiment has been done by Swank, of course, in hamsters and hamster cheek pouches. It's been done in the eyes by ophthalmologists Meyer Friedman and Ray Rosenman. It's been done by others sublingual. It's been done with open abdomens during surgery. So anyways, it's rather extraordinary. Dr. McDougall points out safflower oil causes just as much sludging as sat-fat cream. There's also the work of Peter Quo that's along the same lines. And now here's another book on multiple sclerosis. This one is by Sarai Stanchik. She's an internal medicine infectious disease doctor, and she was diagnosed herself with multiple sclerosis. And she had been a total workaholic. She's came down with leg weakness, had an abnormal brain MRI. They put her on a bunch of pills initially. She wasn't doing very well, walking with a cane and crutches, wearing a diaper. But then she started reading articles and saw that people were claiming that eating more blueberries could decrease multiple sclerosis. So she saw that there was a connection between diet and MS, and that was inspiring to her. She also read about twin studies, and she saw that it was only one of two identical twins that would get it. The point being is it wasn't genetic. That means it's not genetic. It had to be environmental or lifestyle. Therefore, there was hope of some type of diet, environment, or lifestyle cure. And she sought it out, and she, read Dr. Swank's book, and she became, a vegan, and she dramatically improved her health. It's now 25 years later since her diagnosis, and she was still practicing clinical medicine. She also noticed she needed to get her sleep. She'd go to bed early, like around 9 p.m., sleep till 5 a.m. So she's making sure she's getting a good and large amount of sleep. I thought it was funny that she said that during doing a residency as a doctor taught her how to become sick. So, because residents, they're sleep deprived, they eat tons of junk food, whatever they can get their hands on, and they're stressed out. That's the typical life of a resident on call. Okay, the next book is the China Study by T. Colin Campbell. And he's most famous for figuring out that the more animal protein you eat, the more cancer you get, especially the animal protein from, milk, casein, for example. Whereas when he fed animals 20% of protein from soy or from wheat, they didn't have an increase in cancer. Okay. My question would be that when we eat, we don't eat just one source of animal protein like that, plant protein. We eat multiple sources, so I wonder if that increases risk more. He pointed out a lot of interesting things. For example, the number of people dying from cancer in the United States, if they're eating animal protein versus not, or men versus women. The point is there's not much difference when you go from 1972 to 1992. Very little improvement has been obtained in the treatment of cancer patients. It's really kind of pathetic. Okay, cancer foci, no matter how much animal protein you fed, even feeding them any at all, you still got more cancer. So the point was, the only safe amount of animal protein is to eat none of it. Now, don't get me wrong, our ancestors survived cold winters by eating animal protein. Okay, having meat and dairy will get you to survive a cold winter when there's no other food available. But in the modern world, there is other food available in the winter, and you can get plants all year round, so that's a healthier thing to do. Okay, the next book, I put this as honorable mention. It's not as good of a book as China Study. China Study is one of the all-time great nutrition health books ever written. But this is still a very good book. Proteinaholic, I got my copy of it right here. Proteinaholic by Garth Davis. He was a bariatric surgeon in Texas, and he found that he himself had fallen prey to the American diet. He was fat. He had really poor endurance. He had irritable bowel syndrome. So he figured for his own sake and for his patient's sake, he needed to study nutrition. And he did, and he did it very thorough. He's a very bright guy. He learned that, meat eaters are fatter, sicker, more obesity, hypertension, diabetes, and they die sooner than vegans. He became a vegan himself and a triathlete. He said that eating meat to get more protein leads to metabolic acidosis because the protein is made out of amino acids. They're acids. He also noticed that calcium was being leached, not just from the spine, but he emphasized leaching of calcium from muscles, and he said that this could lead to muscle wasting. So that's a big statement. He's saying that when you eat more protein, you actually get muscle wasting. Now, that was just said on one page. He didn't elaborate on it that much. I put the page number in here, page 150 to 151. Also on page 198, he talks about the increased cancer risk from eating more animal protein. But that's a big statement, that the calcium leaching from muscles in a setting of metabolic acidosis due to increased protein intake is associated with muscle wasting and fat accumulation in muscle cells. And when he's saying fat accumulation in muscle cells, that implies more diabetes, because fat accumulation in skeletal muscle cells is the earliest detectable thing of insulin resistance for diabetes. He says meat contains bacteria and their endotoxins. The endotoxins are not destroyed by cooking. Sat fat in particular increases the risk of leaky gut, meaning increased intestinal permeability. And the endotoxins, they then get into the blood, they cause inflammation, and he says they also cause fat accumulation in muscle cells. So he's making big statements here. What he's basically saying is increased animal protein intake increases your risk of diabetes, not just because of the saturated fat, but also because the endotoxins are causing fat accumulation in the skeletal muscle cells, and the metabolic acidosis is causing fat accumulation in the skeletal muscle cells. Those are actually very big statements. And what he's saying here is that you don't even want skim milk, which is, very low in fat, because the animal protein itself is intrinsically diabetogenic. That's a big statement. So that would imply that it probably is for supplements too. Now, I don't know that for sure, but I would expect that it is. And then he says the more carbohydrate you eat, the less inflammation you will have and the less diabetes you will have. Yep. Okay, the more fat and animal protein people eat, the more hypertension they have. And I put the page numbers from the book, Proteinaholic. They're right in there. Okay, insulin-like growth factor, number 1, causes cells to activate and grow. The more animal protein we eat, the more IGF-1 we have. Vegans have significantly lower levels of IGF-1. So they have less IGF-1. That's another reason why vegans have less cancer. Prostate cells are highly sensitive to IGF-1. Lowering IGF-1 will increase longevity. You can lower IGF-1 by caloric restriction or by avoiding animal protein. So that's a big point. So basically, nobody wants to do calorie restriction where you starve yourself. That's no fun. But just by eating a plant-based diet, you'll tend to eat less calories, and in particular, you'll eat less methionine. And the research studies indicate that eating less methionine will lead to increased longevity, that you get a similar effect to caloric restriction. He does point out that some animal foods have increased methionine. He says some seeds and some nuts. I don't specifically know the type at this time. I would have to look that up. It says methionine is quite low in fruits. Vegan men have higher testosterone levels than vegetarians or meat eaters. Methionine restriction does increase longevity in rodents. Raw fruitarians, who get approximately 4% of their calories from protein, they will, because fruits are quite low in protein, they will get enough protein, and this includes people like Michael Arnstein, Durian Ryder, Freely the Banana Girl, Fully Raw, Christina. He knows all of them, and he's also a triathlete, so he kind of meets this crowd. You know, Mike Arnstein's sort of a famous ultra marathon runner. Durian Ryder is a famous guy where, you know, bicycle racing. That was his girlfriend, Freely the Banana Girl, who he taught her how to become skinny. Fully Raw, Christina is a famous raw food vegan. So anyways, that's kind of interesting stuff. So it's a good book. And it's available in audio CD. I like that, so I can listen to it in my car. Okay, Caffeine Blues by Stephen Chernisky. You know, the bottom line is caffeine increases the same hormones as psychological stress. It increases catecholamines, it increases, which is adrenaline, noradrenaline, it increases cortisol. So it's going to do everything you'd expect from that. It's going to cause insomnia. It's going to cause elevated blood glucose. It's going to cause elevated blood lipids. It's going to cause elevated blood pressure. It's going to cause hypertension. It's going to be an excitotoxin. So that's all bad. That's why I don't drink caffeine. And that's why I think people who say caffeine is good for you are full of nonsense. It increases calcium urinary excretion, and that increases the risk of kidney stones. It increases magnesium excretion in the urine. That's also bad because most Americans are magnesium depleted because they don't eat enough plant foods. Okay, the next book here is Life Without Diabetes. This one is by Roy Taylor. He's the English, MD, diabetes researcher, and he found that if he got diabetic patients who'd been diabetic, type 2 diabetes, less than 4 years, they would have fatty liver, and if you got them to lose 30 pounds of weight or more, every single one of them was cured of their diabetes. So 30-pound weight loss, cured of type 2 diabetes. You know, if you wait too long, they're going to have destroyed their pancreas, and it'll be irreversible, but that's still quite remarkable. You know, you can cure all these patients from type 2 diabetes if you just get them to lose weight. Most people, as soon as they go low-fat vegan, they lose weight if they were fat before, like they typically are. He's got lectures online here as well. This next book is Mastering Diabetes, and this is Robbie Bidaru and Cyrus Khambatta. And these guys are good. They both have diabetes, and so they've got a lot of personal experience. They coach people about how to get better from diabetes. I've watched a whole bunch of their lectures. I've read their book. They're good, and they answer a lot of, you know, day-to-day life questions a diabetic person would have. So useful to know for someone with diabetes. I'm just going to go on two more slides here about diabetes that you want to know if you're interested in diabetes. This guy, Gerald Shulman, is a genius. He's a Yale physician, MD, PhD, who did work with nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, showing that the earliest first detectable finding of type 2 diabetes was accumulation of fat within skeletal muscle cells. So they call it intramyocellular lipid. Okay, and that really was sort of confirming the work done earlier of this guy, Michael Brownlee. This guy's another genius. And this paper is like one of the best nutrition papers ever written. It's a masterpiece. It's so beautiful. I almost cried when I read it. It was so beautiful. The Pathobiology of Diabetic Complications, a Unifying Mechanism. You can get it at the American Diabetic Association site. If you go to PubMed, you won't be able to get an abstract, but he won the Banting Award in 2004. You have to sign in to the ADA site if you want to watch the video, but you can see the actual video lecture if you sign into their site. You can't watch it on YouTube as far as I'm aware of. It's a masterpiece. He figured out the unifying reason for diabetes complications, and what he showed was that fat was inhibiting the electron transport, the intermitochondrial membrane, especially around the region of coenzyme Q and complex 3, and that caused a reversal of electron transport. Basically, the gradient went too high. You're pumping too many protons into the intermembranous space. So then the back pressure of excessive proton gradient. It's a massive gradient to begin with, like about negative 165 millivolts. It's an incredible gradient. And then it starts to run backwards. You start leaking electrons onto oxygen, making superoxides, getting oxidative stress. And this whole cascade of negative chain reaction and negative events happens. But if you're really interested in diabetes, all you need to know is that fat's the most common cause of diabetes, increased dietary fat, especially sat fat. But if you want to see the article and how it all plays out to the subsequent complications like advanced glycation end products, damage to DNA, etc., It's a magnificent paper. And so that's all I got for today. That was top 50 health books of all time, books numbers 11 through 15. Hope that was helpful.